our last comedian of this second Bright Club is, well, he's a psychologist. He's an experimental psychologist. Those are the ones who don't really talk to you. They just pour some acid over you and write down what happens. That's experimental psychology for you. And he's also a comedian, and he's an improv theater player, and he even gives comedy workshops. He trains the other comedians at the Bright Club. So what we're going to look at is a scientist who gives comedy workshops. So if you don't laugh, he's just going to explain to you why it was funny. I will now explain to you why this joke was funny and you did not get it. Point A, please take notes. So, I'm sure he will not. Please, oh, I should have put the button up. Yes, everything is fine. I'm not an engineer. This should work. Please welcome Michaël van Damme.
Good evening. I'm Michaël, and I'm a psychologist. In fact, I'm indeed an experimental psychologist. So we like to do experiments on people. Usually, we receive people in the lab, and then we go like, a human being. I wonder what he would do if I would give him an electroshock. Ow! Okay. Let's give him another one. Stop it! Interesting. Just give him, another one. Seriously, it's not funny anymore. Do you know who I am? Aha! Now we're getting somewhere. Now, let's see what he does if we dance around him naked. Turns out it was the guy from the ethics committee. But basically that's what we do in the lab. So, but usually, when you tell people that you're a psychologist, they think that there's only one kind of psychologist. They assume that every psychologist is a therapist. Now that would be a mistake, because I reckon I wouldn't be a very good therapist. So yes, Timothy, if I understood correctly, you feel anxious because your mother was too controlling during your childhood. Yes, I think I can help you with that. Just sit still. How do you feel now, Timothy? How do you feel now? That probably wouldn't work very well. At least it didn't work for Timothy. It's a tragic story. But when people think that you're the therapist kind of psychologist, it brings along a certain kind of power. For example, last Wednesday I met Walter, and Walter is my wife's ex-boyfriend. He's the kind of guy who's always one step ahead of me. You know, he has a proper job. You know, he drives a fancy car, and he has a real, full-grown, manly beard. Yeah, when I try to grow a beard, I look like a scruffy Jack Russell. It looks like I've been cleaning the shower with my chin. Just silly. I like to think that some areas on my face decided one day that they would become the freedom facial fighters. Facial freedom fighters. And that they would resist puberty for all eternity. And that whenever they see a facial hair dooming up in the distance, they would go, "Bring down that hair! We want to stay innocent and soft forever!" Just adventures on my face. And I don't mean that in a sexual way, of course. It's just, But, Walter. Yes, Walter's actually, he's a pretty cool guy. You know, and so my only option left to beat Walter is to use the powers of psychology. So I told Walter, hey Walter, you're actually a cool guy, but just talking to you, I think that deep inside you're actually a pretty vulnerable person. I think that you've been pulling up these walls inside yourself to protect your true inner self. And Walter, he went like, whoa man, how do you know that? That's really weird. Walter has a quite low voice. So I just, hey man, hey Walter, no, don't worry man, I'm a psychologist. Trust me, I know these kind of things. You know what you should do, Walter? I think that beard is the external projection of those inner walls you pulled up. I think it's time to tear down those walls. I think it's time to show them your true inner self. I think it's time to shave. He shaved. Everywhere. Turns out my wife finds him even more attractive now. But where was I? Yes. So yeah, people automatically assume that when you're a psychologist, that you can read their mind. They think that you can see right through them and read their most intimate thoughts, which is of course totally true. However, when you try to share with people some scientific facts, they just don't believe you. I mean, it's like, they just so, no, that's not true. A few days ago, I just told a group of people that for decades, research has shown that people are more creative when they work alone than when they work in a group. And one of them just went, no, it's not true. It's not possible because I'm more creative when I work in a group. Okay then. I guess you are the representative sample of the human race. I mean, it's just denying the facts. It's like, excuse me, your fly is open? No, it's not true. Yes, I'm afraid it is. No, it's not possible. Because if my fly would be open, I would feel a pleasant breeze. And isn't that strange? People are eager to give psychologists psychic powers, but they won't grant us any scientific powers. It's like meeting up with an astronomer and tell him, I don't care about your black holes, just tell me if I'm going to meet the love of my life this week. Tell me! The thing is when it comes to human behavior, we are all experts. I mean, who am I as a human to tell other humans how humans behave? I mean, and in that respect, I quite envy the physicists. Because when they have to do experiments, it all seems so clear-cut and simple. They don't have to work with humans. They don't have to recruit particles and promise them money to lure them into their experiments. Particles don't mess up all your data because they have to go to the toilet during an experiment. And of course, it's not considered unethically to give particles electroshocks. Particles don't behave like human beings. At least, not as far as we know. Secretly, I hope the particles are messing with the physicists. That would be great. Oh, you guys, another boring experiment coming up. Oh, wait a minute. Let's make this a bit more interesting. You there, Higgs boson, quick, hide behind me. But I think I find a solution for the credibility of psychologists. I think because people do believe us, the moment that we tell them that their behavior is related to an area in their brain. Oh, wow, amazing. So I decided that just whenever you share a scientific fact with people, and I would advise this to every behavioral researcher to do this, I just add, yes, it's because it's in the frontal cortex. You know? So, people are more creative when they work alone. It's because it's in the frontal cortex. Wow, that's amazing! I know. It works. Unfortunately, brain scans are probably one of the worst ways to measure human behavior. But it is hard to measure human behavior. It's hard to rule out all other factors. That's why, in the early days of psychology, some experimental psychologists reasoned that for their experiments, they needed human beings that were not affected by external factors yet. They reasoned that they needed babies. Genius. I mean, and one of those babies was, famously, little Albert. And little Albert, he wasn't afraid of anything because he was a baby. So the psychologists released a cute, fluffy white rat onto little Albert. Just a fluffy little rat tiptoeing towards Albert. And when little Albert tried to reach for the fluffy little rat, the psychologist behind little Albert took out a pair of cymbals and made this horrifying noise. And they repeated that experiment until they didn't need the cymbals anymore. And for the rest of his life, and I kid you not, Albert was afraid of anything fluffy. Now, when I think of that experiment, I like to think of the rat. Because the rat must have been quite relieved the moment that he found out he wasn't the one they were experimenting on. Because let's be honest, if you are born as a white rat in a lab, the chances for you are quite high that you will get either AIDS, cancer, or a third ear on your back. So now, of course, we can't do experiments on children anymore. We can't do experiments on babies anymore. At least not officially. The first thing I did when my wife told me she was pregnant for the first time is buy a pair of cymbals. They were great. My daughter, she's 3 now, she doesn't ask for candy. In fact, if you try and offer her candy, she crawls off in the corner and cries. She understands how important it is to have a healthy lifestyle. And when people come up to me and ask me about my daughter's behavior, I just tell them, hey, don't worry. I'm a psychologist. It's because of her frontal cortex. Okay, thank you. Have a great night.